This video is made possible by Practical Defense Systems, the best online security training at the lowest prices. You can start your security career today online at pdsclasses.com. Check them out. Hi, this is Joel Persinger. I'm the Gun Guy. Thank you very much for all of your support of GunGuyTV. I'm very grateful. Hopefully in this last 3 days, this is the fourth day of the California stay-at-home order. Hopefully in the last 3 days, I've been able to show you that the world is not coming to an end. And despite everyone's desire to tell you otherwise, there actually is food in many of the stores and supplies are coming back and the zombies are not banging on the door. Okay. Now look, a lot of people get upset with me because I say those things because I'm not screaming doom and gloom and I'm not telling you that you should go hunker down in a bunker somewhere or any of those things. Here's what I will tell you. I think preppers have been vindicated as a result of this because those who were prepared are in much better shape for these kinds of events than those who aren't. And there are a lot of folks who aren't. The other thing I would share with you, too, is that the governor's order is not what the media would portray it as. It's not a lockdown, and I've already explained all of that. I'm not going to go through all that again. So, honestly, life is not necessarily subnormal. It's actually pretty normal for a lot of folks. The hard thing is a lot of folks are not working, and now they're wondering about their paycheck and how do I make my rent or my house payment and so on. And then there are also medical workers who can't get enough personal protection equipment. I have a very good friend in I think he's almost in Northern California, who is a paramedic and has been for a long time. I was just talking with him on the phone today, and they don't have enough PPEs. They just don't. So they use them sparingly, and that puts them, along with police officers and firefighters and other folks, at risk of getting the coronavirus. So, and he's aware of that, and it's very alarming. So there are some real problems with supply chain here. So I think there's a few things we've learned from this. First of all, we're not in anywhere near as bad a shape as we would have been had this been a virus with a much higher mortality rate. If it had been something like Ebola with a 50% mortality rate, we'd be in a wholly different picture. I think if our current president hadn't acted as quickly as he had, we'd be in a totally different picture as well. We'd be more like Italy and less like where we're at. And so I got to give credit where credit is due to President Trump and his team. Now, I've had people send me notes that Hillary would have done a better job. I think that's an idiotic statement. We saw very clearly Hillary's response to an emergency in Benghazi, and I don't necessarily want to see that repeated by any Democrat whack job president if we ever face something like this. So I reject that out of hand personally. That's just my opinion. So anyway, there you are. I'm not seeing the kind of frightening stuff happening that people are claiming. I will address one thing here real quick, and then we're going to talk about some gun stuff. So one thing I want to point out is the whole National Guard thing. Look, people are now sending me notes saying the National Guard has been called out, and they're going to take your guns. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. No, you notice this. This is a story about the National Guard coming out during California's deadliest fire. Now, that was the Camp Fire. They came out and served in many capacities, one of which was to help with evacuations, to distribute supplies, to help with the people who had been displaced. They did a lot of things. That's what the Guard does. And frankly, in California, we call out the National Guard a lot. They've been called out so many times. The Northridge earthquake was horrible. I remember it. And the Guard was called out for that. So the National Guard gets called out in California quite regularly, particularly in fire season. And whenever there's an earthquake or a natural disaster here, the Guard gets called out. In every case, their job is, most generally, I think probably very few exceptions, their job is to help with logistics, help with evacuations, supplies, and so on. My understanding this time around is that Guards members have been called out again to help with logistics and with distributing food and making sure that the supply chain has the extra help it needs so that the supermarkets can get filled up again, which right now they're not. There are just only so many trucks to deliver this. And by the way, let me pause right here and thank America's truckers. If you're a trucker and you're watching this, I humble myself in the presence of greatness. It's because of you that we have anything in the stores, and I'm very grateful for what you do. I hope everyone else will thank you as well. So if you're freaking out because the National Guard was called out, my suggestion is that you not do so and that you don't listen to the people who scream that, oh my gosh, the National Guard has been called out. It's the end of the country. Well, no, actually, the National Guard has been called out, and they are fairly often in the state of California. And quite often when they're called out for these kinds of tasks, people freak out on social media and all race to their bunker. I don't think it's necessary in this particular situation. We have a virus that percentage-wise has a fairly low mortality rate. And some people say, I heard on one of the press conferences, I heard Dr. Birx mention that it looked like it was shaking out to be about 0.7%. That's the only time I've ever heard that mentioned, but I did hear it mentioned. But even if it's 1% or 2%, that means 98 to 99% of the people that get it survive. So sometimes it's good to look on the positive end of things to the best that you can. The numbers just tend to work out a lot better. All right, the other thing I would mention to you is that there actually are, while this is an incredibly negative experience, there actually are some significant positives that I don't want to forget. First of all, the country was not set up to do this. Our emergency systems were not set up to do this. And because we've had very foolish leaders in the past, we had essentially given our entire manufacturing base to China. And now we're stuck because we don't have enough things to go around. Well, I think this lesson has been learned very, very effectively and very painfully by the American people. And my hope is that the American people will hold their leaders to account and get that fixed. I know that from what President Trump says, he's working very hard to fix that problem so that it doesn't continue. It was not a problem he created. It was one he's railed against since before he was president. So hopefully we'll get our manufacturing back and we'll be able to divide that up a little bit so that we're not dependent on one country, particularly one that tends to be our economic enemy, which China was. So that's and is. So that was a terrible decision on our leaders' part previously to make over the last few decades to make us so dependent on China for everything was insane. And we're feeling the pain of that right now. All right, now on to gun stuff, which I mentioned I was going to do. So that's it as far as the COVID-19 thing and the California lockdown, which isn't a lockdown. So I'm not going to continue doing these. My hope was that I would be able to give you some hope by showing you what's actually happening on the ground, as opposed to what you see in the media and what you see by, portrayed by social media personalities who are looking for opportunities to get more views and generate money for themselves. Look, I don't care, honestly, because I do care, but I don't make a living on YouTube. So I'm just going to be real with you here. I'm not seeing what they're portraying. Are some areas having a tougher time than others? Yes, but everything I showed you was real. People are going shopping if they need to go shopping. They're walking their dog if they need to walk their dog. They're doing the daily things they have to do in order to survive. Now, are a lot of folks trying to stay in place and stay home in order to try to blunt that curve? Yes. But when you see folks at the store, in large part, it's people that need this or that, and they're going to the store to get it. And the governor actually gave instructions that we should feel free to do that. So we are. So there you are. All right. Now, things that you and I need to be concerned about where gun stuff is concerned are things like this. This is a story out of Breitbart. The PA Republicans are pushing a requirement for ammo purchases for you to get a permit. That's one. All right, here's another one. I'll show you a few of these in rapid succession here. I hope you don't mind. This knucklehead, who is a blithering idiot, but don't tell him I said so. Actually, you might not remember it, is a Democrat in the House, and he has put forth a bill that has in it, if you go to look at it, it has every dream anti-gun, gun control thing the Democrats could think of in this thing, and he's trying to push it forward. People are panicking over it and very upset about it. I get it. We should be on our guard, and we should be making sure that both he and our other representatives know, as well as our president, that we will not stand for that. And I will try to put some more information for you in the comments about that. I'm not going to get too deep into these, and the reason why is because I'm just a blue-collar guy and a small business owner with an opinion. That doesn't mean I know what I'm talking about, because I don't in a lot of cases. So instead, what I'm going to do is try to connect with people that do know what they're talking about. I have a 4 o'clock appointment with Rick Travis at CRPA. We're going to try to do something, I think, on their YouTube channel, their news program, if it works out. Hey, I get to be a guest. That's kind of cool, huh? I don't do that very often. But I'm also going to reach out to NRA, reach out to GOA, and see if I can get somebody to talk to me about these national issues as well as the California issues. And I'll try to get somebody on that actually knows what they're talking about, and they can give you the straight dope on it rather than me just spouting off my opinion. I think, frankly, between you and me and the fence post, I think we've got enough opinionators opining with hyperbole now. I don't think we need an extra one, so I'm not going to do it. We have enough of those. If you want to see hyperbolic nonsense and opinions thrown all over the place, there's lots of places for you to go for that. GunGuyTV is not going to be one of them, so we're just not going to do that. So here's another one. This is Los Angeles Sheriff. It says, Los Angeles Sheriff works to empty jails while disparaging Second Amendment rights. Here's the problem with that. These people are all talking about letting people out of the prisons and out of the jails because of COVID-19. That's nice, except that means that law-abiding citizens are now at the mercy of these jokers you're letting out of jail. And guess what? At the same time, particularly in California, they're making it awfully difficult for people who do not own a firearm to actually purchase a firearm. So it's kind of all coming together in a way that isn't positive. Then you've got this story here with good old Nancy Pelosi. The president and Republicans are trying to put together a financial help plan to help workers get through this so they can make their house payment, in part by helping their companies stay afloat, particularly if they're large companies or even small businesses like mine. We don't necessarily need the help, but there are a lot of small companies that do, particularly restaurants and bars and so on, where their employees are now home and unable to work. So this does make a big difference. And what do the Democrats want? They want money for Planned Parenthood. So they've held up the money for workers and to keep people financially afloat during this time, in order to give it to Planned Parenthood and their other secret little pet projects. And I got to tell you, it's a lot of these pet projects that have put us in trouble in the first place. So we need to stop that kind of nonsense. And then, of course, you have AOC, who is the village idiot of Congress, if you ask me. And she wants elder clemency. Let those people out of Rikers. They shouldn't have to be in there, even though they committed crimes. Let's let them all out. So those are the crazy things we need to pay attention to. There is a lot going on in the background because the anti-gun people and the anti-American legislators we have, I'm just going to call them what they are. The anti-freedom, anti-constitution, anti-American, anti-gun legislators we have in Congress and in state legislatures, and in California, both in state legislatures and in the governor's seat. Not so much the governor right now, but certainly the state legislature. I think the governor's got his hands full with this coronavirus thing. But the state legislatures are trying to take an advantage right here. They know that we're focused on the coronavirus over here. So while we're focused over here, watch the scary object. They're trying to strip us of our rights and cause us harm over here. And we can't lose sight of that. So while I'm happy to have gone out and proved to you with my video camera that life is not nearly as devastatingly bad as people make it out to be in the state of California, I also want to bring us back to the fact that they are saying, hey, watch the scary object over here, and they're trying to do us a lot of harm over here. So we need to keep our eye on that. And I will be bringing guests on the show to inform us. So I want to make sure we're being informed by people that actually know what they're doing and know what they're talking about. By the way, I want to lift up the NRA in one sense. I know a lot of people are mad at the NRA. I'm not mad at NRA. I still believe very strongly that Wayne LaPierre needs to resign and that there need to be some serious changes there. I'm a life member of NRA, as is my wife, and I still support them. But there are some changes that need to be made. But I will tell you one thing. This video is really awesome. If you have not seen it, I'm going to play it for you. If you have seen it, well, it's worth watching again because this woman is so compelling, it boggles the mind. Here's the video.
As a breast cancer survivor who is disabled, I am one of the millions of Americans who is vulnerable to the deadly coronavirus. I hope I survive the coronavirus. That's up to God. What's in my control is how I defend myself if things go from bad to worse. You might be wondering why I'm holding this. I know from history how quickly society breaks down during a crisis, and we've never faced anything like this before. And never is the Second Amendment more important than during public unrest. It's no surprise why sales of guns and ammunition have skyrocketed. Even liberals in California are lining up because they know the government will not be able to protect them. My name is Carletta Whiting. Here's something for you to think about. You might be stockpiling up on food right now to get through this current crisis, but if you aren't preparing to defend your property when everything goes wrong, you're really just stockpiling for somebody else. You may not have heard of what happened during Hurricane Katrina, but police actually went door to door, stripping our society's most vulnerable people of their guns, which was their only means to protect themselves. It would be foolish to assume it couldn't happen here. It already has. What's happening today feels eerily similar. In Champaign, Illinois, the mayor has assumed the power to ban gun transfers, citing the coronavirus pandemic. In New Orleans, the mayor has issued an emergency order allowing her to ban the sale and transportation of firearms. Thankfully, after Hurricane Katrina, my brothers and sisters at the NRA fought back, passing legislation and ensuring our firearms cannot be confiscated during state of emergencies. And make no mistake, anti-gun politicians will seek to use the current pandemic to enact strict gun control measures in the name of safety. Taking guns out of the hands of law-abiding Americans doesn't make anyone more safe. It puts everyone, especially vulnerable like me, at risk. And these are the same politicians who ask me why I need an assault weapon.
To gun owners out there who say, well, a Biden administration means they're going to come for my guns.
Bingo, you're right if you have an assault weapon.
Not that I need a reason in America, but I'm disabled and I literally need this firearm for the 3 points of contact to defend my home and family. Back in 2015, my life was shattered when I fell victim to domestic violence. I thought I would never feel safe again. It was this firearm that gave me my life back. Unlike the elites who look down on gun owners, I don't have the luxury of living in an affluent neighborhood with private security. In my neighborhood, crime and violence is part of everyday life. Without my firearm, I'm defenseless. To those mayors looking to strip their constituents of their gun rights, I have one question for you. Do you really wish to leave someone like me, a disabled woman, completely unable to defend myself during one of the most uncertain times of our lives? Speaking on behalf of 5 million NRA members, not on our watch. As Wayne LaPierre says,
that in a dangerous world, the Second Amendment is often all we have.
My name is Carletta Whiting, and I am a proud member of the National Rifle Association.
Like I said, that woman is incredibly compelling, so I wanted you to be able to see that if you hadn't already seen it. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to get back to doing gun stuff because this is GunGuyTV. I've got some reviews I'm going to do next week for you, and I've got a few stacked up, so I can get those done without necessarily having to go to the range, which is very difficult for me to do at this point because we have a stay-at-home order. But you should see those coming up the next couple of days. I'm also very late with my audio podcast. That's partially because we had to make a lot of decisions and changes in our business in order to run our business remotely. So that took a little bit of effort and time and trying to let you know what was going on in San Diego to dispel a lot of the rumors and the crazy stuff. I had to do that too. And so between the two and just kind of getting our house squared away, it was a little difficult to do. All right. If you are prepared for what may be coming, if it's worse, amen. I'm glad you are. If you aren't, I do encourage you to prepare more. Things could get worse. Now, I've tried very hard to look on the bright side, and I do feel very good about the idea that we're going to get back to semi-normal once this sort of passes on and the thing ends. Hopefully it'll die out in the summertime on its own. Otherwise it'll stretch on a little longer and die out then. I have talked to a couple of friends who are in the medical field, and they've all said that in their opinion it will die out in the next month or so or more. So, but that's a tough time. I would urge you, if you are a Christian or if you are a person of faith, to walk very strongly in your faith. I would urge you also to be prepared for bad times because they may be coming. But at the same time, I still think we need to be kind to each other and be respectful of each other. And I'm not going to stop doing that. Now, obviously, if something changes in San Diego, if there's a big change, if the National Guard starts being more aggressive, or if something happens along those lines, I'm going to make sure you know about it as soon as I know about it, and I will get in my truck and go out and video it for you again. So rest assured, if there's a big change other than what we're doing, whether that's a change for the better or a change for the worse, I'll make sure that you know. The other thing I want to address is people thinking that the National Guard is going to run around and the police department's going to show up and take your guns. Now, there have been some instances of mayors and governors talking about that, it seems, and in each case, the gun rights organizations are going after them. But I want to remind you of the Disaster Personal Recovery Act of 2006. I think that's what it's called. I'll put a link to it in the description. This was passed after Katrina, because you may remember back with Hurricane Katrina, I think it was in August of 2005, the local police department went around banging on doors, as this lady pointed out in her video, and confiscated guns. And right after that, a law was passed, a federal law, the one I just quoted, and I'll put a link in the description for you, that forbade that from federal agencies, and at the same time also made it illegal for any agency, state, federal, local, whatever, that accepts federal money to confiscate lawfully possessed firearms during an emergency or during the recovery following a disaster. So I urge you to read that. That is a federal law that covers pretty much everybody and everything. So the chances of that happening are pretty darn slim. I'm not saying it can't happen, but I think we need to get past the doom and gloomers. Let's look on the positive side if we can, and let's work to restore our country rather than tear it apart. Well, thank you again very much for all of your support. I hope you have a great day. And this is my last report on the California lockdown, which isn't really a lockdown, unless and until something new happens. Have a great week wherever you go, whatever you do. Please be safe.